session 3 of Facing the Enemy. We were saying yesterday how Jesus began his teaching in Capernaum, where the best of scholars were. And yet the people were amazed at his teaching, like he taught with an authority. And then he showed that authority by driving a demon out of a man. He showed that he had power over the forces of darkness. Now, all through history, the people of Israel had seemed to swing from one extent to the other. Either they would be so much of the world that they'd worship the gods of the people around them and join in their rituals, or they would become so determined to please God that they would completely cut themselves off from the world. And that's really where they were at Jesus' time. So determined to obey the law that they made themselves completely separate from the world around them. They believed it was wrong to eat with a person who wasn't Jewish. They certainly didn't want to go into areas that weren't Jewish. They knew they were there to demonstrate God's love, and they believed they would do that by living absolutely pure lives and having nothing to do with the rest of the world. Jesus knew that he had come to confront the forces of evil. So he was there to bring the world back into right relationship with the Father. So one day he said to his disciples, "Come on, get in the boat, we're going to row across to the other side." Now that mightn't sound like a very drastic thing to do, but on the other side of the lake was the area known as Decapolis. It was 10 Greek cities, and it was just, they had the Greek gods, the Greek culture. It was regarded as just so horribly depraved that the Jewish people wouldn't go there. So the other side meant a little bit more than just on the shore of the lake. It meant we're going into enemy territory. In obedience, they began to row across the lake, and Jesus went to sleep in the back of the boat. They were on their way to enemy territory, and the enemy was not pleased, and so he stirred up a storm. Now, that lake is known for its sudden storms, and these were fishermen who fished that lake every day or every night. They would have known all about the storms, but this one must have been a real doozy because they were terrified. And they woke Jesus up saying, "Don't you care that we're going to drown?" More than a physical storm, it was the devil's fury that Jesus was coming into the territory where he held sway. Now Jesus was completely undisturbed. He knew that what he was doing, that the enemy had no power over him. So when the disciples woke him, he simply stood up and he said to the storm, "Quiet, be still." And it was. And that frightened the disciples more than the storm had. They'd just seen the power of God at work. They knew their Psalms. Psalm 107, 27 to 29 says this: "They reeled and staggered like drunken men. They were at their wits' end. They cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distress. He stilled the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed." And that's why they suddenly started to say, "Who is this man?" We know that when they got to the other side, they met a man who was just so demonized that nobody could control him. Chains couldn't even keep him down. The demons were so many that they called themselves Legion. And it was almost like Satan was throwing the worst he had at Jesus to try and frighten him off, saying, "You can't come into my territory." But of course we know that Jesus drove out all the demons and the man was restored to his right mind. Jesus is greater than the worst the enemy can throw at us.
In the name of Jesus, in the name of Jesus, we have the victory.